is the Celebrity Afterlife Report podcast.
Howdy doody neighbors, I am the Celebrity Medium here once again to bring you another edition of the Celebrity Afterlife Report, the only show on the internet that gives you the up-to-the-minute gossip about all your favorite deceased celebs. This is actually the second time I'm recording this show. I recorded it, I posted it online, and then I found out that the app I used to post it deleted the last two-thirds of the entire thing, so now I have to do it all over again. But that's my problem, not yours. All right, let's get into this edition of the Celebrity Afterlife Report. Over the last few days there, Frank Vincent, you may know him from the Sopranos. He was an actor. He was also in Raging Bull, Goodfellas, where he played Billy Bats, a very memorable part, and Casino. His actual name, just in case you end up on Jeopardy someday and they ask you this, his birth name was Frank Vincent Gattuso Jr. Better known for his looks than for his name. You really wouldn't recognize it. The average person wouldn't know who you were talking about if you mentioned Frank Vincent. But, you know, if you showed them a picture, they go, oh, that guy. He's one of those. He played drums, piano, and trumpet professionally before he turned acting in 1976. He arrived in the next world over the weekend. There was a nice crowd on hand, I am told by my next world sources, including his idol Dean Martin and alleged mobster John Gotti. I'm making air quotes when I say alleged mobster. You may know John Gotti. If you've seen Goodfellas, remember the whole thing about the Lufthansa heist, where they rob a big bunch of money from the airline Lufthansa? Well, that was based on an actual incident, and allegedly, again with the air quotes, John Gotti was the mastermind behind that. So after Frank Vincent got done on stage, you know, thanking everybody for being there and welcoming him to the afterlife, Gotti came up to him and said he was one of his favorite actors of all time. And Vincent was very flattered by that, and they were talking, you know, very in a friendly manner for a while. And a reporter came over and asked Gotti if he thought Frank Vincent represented the mafia accurately. And then Gotti got like all offended, or probably more like faux offended, saying, I'm just a plumbing supply salesman. Because that's the story he said for years when he was actually running the mob. He said he was a plumbing supply salesman, and apparently he's sticking to that story, even though he's transitioned to the afterlife. I guess, you know, what is it? What's the old saying? A horse can't change its colors, or something like that? All right. Next up, Dean Stanton, another one of those guys whose name you might not know, but if I showed you a picture, you'd be, oh, that guy. There's a lot of that guys running around in Hollywood. He was one of them. He was a character actor, never really a career, you know, a leading man type, because he was kind of craggy looking even when he was younger. He had a career spanning over 60 years, which is like astounding. He was in, just to name a few, Cool Hand Luke, Godfather II, the original Alien movie, Repo Man, Pretty in Pink, The Green Mile, and a whole lot of others. He arrived over the weekend. Actually, I gotta tell you an anecdote. A friend of mine told me. Apparently, Dean Stanton was doing an interview one time, and the reporter asked him something about the Care Bear movie. And Dean Stanton said, why are you asking me about the Care Bear movie? And the reporter said, you were in it? And Stanton said, I was? Okay, that's when you know you've made a lot of movies. You don't even remember ones you were in. Anyway, he took the arrival stage right after Frank Vincent left and was talking to Gotti, and he ended up telling stories about his days in the movie business to a delighted crowd, because he's just a real character and people love him. So when he got done with that, when the crowd finally let him get off the stage, he walked over to where Gotti was talking to Frank Vincent to tell Vincent how much he liked his work. And my sources who witnessed this said that Gotti seemed kind of peeved about being interrupted. I guess in his mind, he's still an alleged mafia godfather. He's kind of giving him the stink eye, and it's like, get over yourself, dude. This is the Afterlife. You don't run, La Cosa Nostra anymore. But anyway, Frank Vincent was very flattered about the compliment, Stanton telling him that he loved his work. So, I guess it worked out. Bobby the Brain Heenan just arrived in the next one. See, it's all these names that you might not know. Bobby the Brain Heenan was a legendary professional wrestling manager. For my money, he was the best wrestling manager of all time. And when he came out on stage, there was a big crowd of wrestling fans. Some of them were wearing lucha libre masks, and some of them were dressed up like different wrestlers just to introduce him. And he was introduced just to welcome him, I should say. He was introduced on stage by his old friend and announcing partner, Gorilla Monsoon. It makes me laugh every time. Is there like a whole family of people named Monsoon somewhere in Tibet, which I believe is where they said Monsoon was from years ago? Also on hand, Andre the Giant, Big John Studd, Mr. Perfect, and Rick Rude, and many other wrestlers who have gone on to their new existences. Now, I mentioned Gorilla Monsoon. This is where this gets interesting. Monsoon, as I told you on the report a while back, was just hired as the head of talent relations by Vince McMahon Sr., who longtime listeners know runs a Shakespearean acting troupe, which consists mostly of former wrestlers. In other words, most of the actors in the troupe used to be wrestlers, although he has brought in a few other people, like an astronaut or two, and Jim Morrison was there for a while, but that didn't work out. Anyway, Monsoon was brought in when wrestler Chyna, Joni Laurer, she developed a real bad case of diva syndrome after getting accolades for her performance in their production of The Taming of the Shrew. So it's kind of interesting that, Monsoon and Heenan were friends for years, and they were announcing partners, but this has caused a rumor that there might be something in the works for Heenan with the Shakespearean acting company. Or it could be just a case of Gorilla Monsoon wanting to be there to welcome his old friend. We don't know, but if there's anything going on with Heenan being offered a job, I'm sure we'll find out in the coming weeks. Okay, a couple of quick updates. Things are status quo with the anti-Trump protests, as well as the pro-Trump rallies in the next world. Fred Trump, Donald's father, and his Nazi sidekick, Charles Lindbergh, and yes, he was a Nazi sympathizer. I don't throw those terms around lightly. They are continuing what I call their Tour de Hate in various venues, spewing racist and anti-Semitic rhetoric. While outside the rallies, Dr. Martin Luther King and his new BFF, Adolf Hitler, are continuing their protests against what they're doing inside. And I'm informed by my contacts that the pro-Trump crowds have shrunk considerably over the past few weeks, while the anti-Trump crowds outside the venues have grown, which I take as a good sign. And I still find it weird that anybody there is worried about, is pro or anti-Trump, because nothing they do can have any effect on what goes on in our plane of existence. And, they've moved on. Why are they worried about this? You'd think they would have transcended that, but apparently some people are still wrapped up in earthly concerns, so the protests and the anti-protests continue. Lastly, it has now been confirmed that director Stanley Kubrick has wrapped up principal photography on his movie Obsessive Behavior, and he's putting the final touches on it. Obsessive Behavior is the movie he took over from Jean-Michel Basquiat and Salvador Dali, who own and operate the Environment. It's an indoor rain attraction. It doesn't rain in the afterlife, so you can go there to experience rain. Some people really dig rain. Long, crazy story. They decided to make a movie. They got way in over their heads. They brought in Kubrick. Kubrick said, "I'll help you with this if you give me complete creative control." They said, okay. He then proceeded to kick Basquiat and Dali completely off the movie. In fact, they weren't even allowed to be on the set while he was filming it. So, it's now done, mostly, and they're just going to have to do the post-production stuff. The movie is expected to be released to the public sometime in the next few months, but we are talking about Stanley Kubrick, and he is a legendary obsessive-compulsive. So those few months could stretch out to a lot longer. We don't know. Nobody, probably including Kubrick, really knows at this point. All right, with any luck, this show has now actually been recorded in its entirety, and you will be able to hear it. And where might you hear it, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked me that question. Imaginary person in my head. You can hear it on iTunes. You can find it in the Google Play Store. And, you can also find it on YouTube. And most importantly, you can hear it on K-Chung Radio AM 1630 in the City of Angels, Los Angeles. It airs at 1 p.m. on Mondays. And why do I have trouble remembering the name of this show? I know it. It's what? Absurdo Projecto? That's not why? This is so stupid. I know the name of the show. Anyway, 1 o'clock, Monday afternoons on K-Chung, AM 1630 in LA. I apologize to the lovely people at K-Chung and the people who do the show. I'm an idiot. On top of that, I am the celebrity medium. Thank you for listening. Bye.
You've been listening to the Celebrity Afterlife Report podcast. To ask a question about your favorite deceased celebrity, call 818-3-MY-DREAM. 818-3-MY-DREAM. 818-369-3732.